Hi, welcome to The Truth with Tal and Isaac. I'm Tal.
I'm Isaac.
Episode number 129 coming at you tonight, and it's going to be banging. We have Luke Willson in the house.
There we go. That was a good intro right there. You guys are on it.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Luke. So we've had some famous people in the Truth studio. Coach Rob, Desmond Doran, some big guys. But Luke is physically the biggest guy, and he's actually the biggest dude, too. So thanks for coming to the show. I just need to start off with a funny story about how Isaac and Luke first met. So I met Luke, we were talking about some charity stuff 11 or 12 years ago, so we're texting back and forth. And then Isaac is 9, playing football for the Raiders. And he had my phone, he's texting away. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm texting Luke. I invited him to practice on Saturday. He said, sure, I'm in. And then I said, we're picking him up. So this is 2012, maybe.
Important to say the year.
Yeah, 2012, right after the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. He was a rookie, finished his first year. I'm also driving a Mini Cooper, like the little one. So we pull up to Luke's house, pick him up, jam him in the car, show up to practice, and Isaac's coaches are like, man, who's that big cracker with Isaac?
All right.
And
okay.
I'm like, that's Luke. And so Luke was super cool, like didn't take over the practice, kind of talked a little about the Super Bowl and working hard in school and playing multiple sports. Then you actually stayed around afterwards and like threw the football around with Isaac and a couple of dudes. So that's how these two dudes first met. And it's funny, just a small world. And Luke from LaSalle, Ontario, back in Windsor, back in the True Studio.
That's another round of applause.
Yay! We don't like Villanova, but that's okay.
Come on now. I was there today. It's looking like a great place. Still, I might add.
Good. So we're just going to chat a little bit, Luke, back and forth. So the agenda is we're going to talk about the draft later on because the draft starts tomorrow night. We're recording Wednesday, so we'll probably drop this Thursday or Friday.
I don't know. We'll see how much draft stuff we get to.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about Luke and growing up in the area and kind of some fun stories.
And like honestly, the only topic is just Luke topics. So that's going to be the episode. We're going to talk about a bunch of random stuff. Hopefully not too obscure. We'll see how niche the stories go. We already told one niche story.
Yep.
So I'm sure we have more. Where do we want to start? How do we want to start with things?
Let's talk about the draft experience because you didn't go to the Underwear Olympics. You did not go to the Combine.
Correct.
So how'd that roll? What happened?
Well, I'll start kind of leading up to the draft, and it's one of my favorite stories. And this is not any BS. Like, I kid you not. I went into my senior year, and there was a lot of, like, in Texas, I was at Rice. It was like, oh, this guy's the Mackey Award, I'm all over the place right now, is the best tight end in the nation. So I was on the preseason NCAA Mackey Award watch list. So I'm like, okay, I'm in good shape. There's all these articles. I believe it's Dave Campbell has this Texas magazine. And it's like the Dave Campbell all-conference preseason list. And there's a big write-up like, Luke is the best NFL prospect Rice has had in years. Season starts, doesn't go well, I get injured. And I'm like, this isn't good. I statistically had one of the worst years I've had. And what was tough was you don't realize this stuff, but I probably only played 6 games. But on paper, I was dressing, and I'd be like, hey, Luke, we're going to shoot your ankle up. You probably won't play a snap today, but just in case like we need you in an emergency, you're going to go in there. Well, now all of a sudden it looks like on paper I played 10 games, which, again, you can't really explain that. So the time
you averaged 3 catches a game.
Yeah, if that. Okay, so then all of a sudden, I remember walking off the field my redshirt senior year and thinking to myself, this might be the last time I ever play competitive football, which is kind of wild with how things went. And I remember being pretty sad about it. Part of what happened as well was Vance McDonald, who was a second-round tight end, was also at Rice. And in the past, he had played slot receiver, and I had played tight end. And when I got hurt, he kind of took over as just the tight end. Fast forward, I go down to Florida and have, Combine guy was actually, his name's Mike Goff out of Scarborough, Ontario is where he's from.
Nice.
Yeah, big Canadian connection there. But I have an all-star game. It's called the NFLPA Bowl. So generally how they rank, Senior Bowl is the best bowl to go to. After that, at least my time, it was East-West Shrine Game.
Yep.
Then after that, there's like 4 or 5 other ones. I would say the NFLPA Bowl is probably the 3rd best. But we go, and had a really good game there. And I'm thinking...
And at this point, you're now healthy.
I'm healthy, and I thought because of the game, which was in January, I want to say, I would get invited to the combine. So I'm calling around, I'm like, please, every day, hoping that the phone would blow up. Like, hey, we're bringing you to the combine. So I end up calling, and they're like, hey, we don't really, like, do this, but we'll let you know. I'm like, okay. Guy calls me back. He goes, Luke, I just wanted to give you a shout. He's like, we never call guys back who are invited. He's like, you were on the borderline to get invited. We just don't have the space, and you're not coming to the combine. And I'm like, oh my, like, this is terrible news.
So now you're like, gotta grow up.
Yes. So
we're not ready to grow up.
Well, the problem was, at this point, I kind of knew I would blow up the combine number-wise.
Yep.
So how it works over there is every school after the combine has a pro day. And you still do all of the testing there. So it was funny because going into that pro day, at the time I used to read all this nonsense, but all the draft stuff was like Luke Willson, prospect. Projected round, 7th to free agent, and the little blurb underneath would say, blocking tight end, doesn't run well, blah, 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 blah. I come out on pro day, we're on the field at Rice, and because Vance is there, and I don't know, some Michigan fans might remember this guy, but Sam McGuffey transferred to Rice.
That's right.
So McGuffey was also another prospect, and the three of us, and there was another tight end who was a quarterback at Miami, transferred him as Taylor Cook, ended up getting a free agent gig. So there's 3 tight ends, and McGuffey were kind of the big 4. So we had a ton of scouts, probably 30.
So Iowa U is not tight end U.
At this time, it was Rice U. Correct. So we go, and we get to the 40-yard dash, and I remember being on one knee about to go and thinking to myself, I'm 23 years old, and my entire life of athletics, all my hopes and dreams have now been basically combined into one 40-yard dash. And if I run a 4.8, I will not be drafted. If I run a 4.7, I will not be drafted. If I run a 4.6, I'll be drafted. And if I run a 4.5, I'm going to be a mid-round pick. And it was that simple. Boom, I run. Hand time was sub 4.5. Electric was 4.51. Mm-hmm. The scouts go, I can hear them all rustling, and one of them goes, son, no way you do that again. I go, watch me. Walk back, a few other guys go, rip a 4.52 electric, and again, hand time I think would have been a little better. And one of the scouts goes, you just made yourself a lot of money. But the best part of this story is that after the day was done, you do the position drills, etc. I'm like all jacked up, and I'm like, hey, I got to go and see what the report is on NFL.com. And I told you I was supposed to be a 7th round pick who couldn't run. I believe his name is Gil Brandt. Would do
Gil Brandt. Oh yeah, he's a big NFL guy.
Okay, yep. Gil Brandt had a
NFL insider.
Small blurb on NFL.com that said Rice Pro Day updates. Luke Willson won the day today. Blazing fast 40 had me at a 4.47 and a 4.56, so that averaged to a 4.51. I'm like, how? Anyways, don't know how those numbers got that far apart. But he goes, kid can run like the wind, can't block a soul. I'm like, what? Projected to be a mid-round pick. And I'm like, this is how heinous. Like, it's funny because I was on actually Jay Onrait's show the other day, and they were asking me about Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. And I was like, it's great. Drafts, to answer your question, is awesome when you're the first round. When you're a first-round person, it's like, great. Yeah, I got to buy a little time. But when you're not, until you actually get picked, it's miserable. Like, it's not fun whatsoever.
You're pooping
waiting for the call.
You're waiting for the call because, again, when you guys turn the draft on tomorrow, you're going to be chopping it up. Like, hey, who do you think this guy, What I'm doing watching it is death gripping my phone and being like, okay, like I'm. You can fact check this, but I'm pretty sure Miami took a guy named Deion Sims out of Michigan State. It was a tight end. But I was sure, I'm like, Miami's been super interested. They call me a bunch. Like, so Miami's on the clock, and I'm like, here we go. Like, looking at my phone.
What round were you like, I think, like this pick?
I started looking at the end of 3 and thought I would be a 4th to 5th rounder.
So early Saturday is
yes.
when we're, okay.
I was like, if it was like the luckiest thing, if there was a run of tight ends, maybe I sneak into the very, very, again, that would have been a Hail Mary. But beyond that, I was like, I'll be a Saturday guy early. Again, I thought 4th round, 5th, which it ended up being the 5th.
Yep.
But all of a sudden, you're sitting there and you're like, wait, Philadelphia was a team that I had talked to a ton. They picked Zach Ertz in the 2nd round. Miami was the team. I'm pretty sure they took Deion Sims. So I'm like, okay, there's my 1 and 2, like, gone. And now you start wondering, like, wait, who's going to pick me? You know? Am I screwed here? I've got all my family and friends in LaSalle, Ontario. So I know it's a bit long-winded, but the draft process for me was very like, okay, great all-star game. I should be able to get to the combine. No, you're not going to the combine. Okay, you're only a blocking tight end. Great pro day. This guy can't block a soul. You know? I'm like, how did that happen? 3 hours ago, I was a blocking guy. And then it was like, oh, you're going to really get drafted high. And then all of a sudden it's like, not high, but like a mid-round guy, like probably to one of these 5 teams. And then it's, again, until I got the call from Seattle, it was very, very stressful.
Cool. Well, let's transition into Seattle. We've been lucky enough to go out there and watch a game. You rolled us through the practice facility. What was it like being a Seahawk? Like, crazy fans.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was, I mean, a dream, really. I laugh because I remember, again, back to draft day, but when I got picked from Seattle, I was not expecting it. And I remember being on the front lawn in LaSalle there, and my dad goes, you know, Seattle had a great year last year. Like, imagine if you won the Super Bowl. And I remember thinking, like, man, that'd be crazy. And sure as shit, that would have been April 2013. February 6th, maybe, or 2nd, one of the two, of February 14, you know, my dad and mom were both at MetLife Field on the actual field.
Holding the Canadian flag up. That's the famous picture.
So it was kind of crazy. But I remember sitting there and going to Seattle, and our practice facility was in a city called Renton, so it's a little bit outside of Seattle, and it's right off of Lake Washington. And that OTAs, Pete Carroll is notorious for really treating rookies well, giving them opportunities, really loving them up, trying to develop these guys. That was his whole MO, which was a lot different from another place that I've been.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay, no.
It's all good.
Like, when we talk about Detroit, I'm sure it'll come out.
For sure.
We got to talk about Kerryon Johnson. That's a guy I would love to chat about when it comes to rookies, but we'll go back.
Well, you know, we'll invite him to come on the show. He'll probably come on the
That's
show.
right. That's right. So, anyways, I remember sitting there that offseason in OTAs. They're trying to see how I'm doing. It went really well, and there was a bald eagle that was like flying across the lake and was sitting on like one of the power line poles. And I remember thinking, I am in, like, I know Lambeau is whatever, the mecca of football, but I think I am in football paradise right now. It's summertime, or it's June, let's call it, so end of spring, and beginning of June. I'm in an OTA. I've got a Seahawk helmet on. Little did I know. I mean, I knew we were good. I was on the best team in the world at that time. We're right on the lake. Every day in Seattle in the summer is pretty much 70 degrees with a really light breeze, so you're not cooking, but it's beautiful out. And there's just a bald eagle soaring around. Pete's dancing. He's got his Air Monarchs on. Okay, it was just like the most surreal thing to kind of take it in, and it was so much fun. We're like in college. Everything was very dictatorship. Like, you're gonna be here at the 6:30 workout, and if you have your shoe untied, the entire team's gonna be punished. You know, it's like, and I do get that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you go from like 4 years of like college football at a subpar performing school in Texas to like, bam, you get drafted, you're on the best football team on planet Earth, living in Seattle with a head coach who is the most fun. It was, I don't know if that kind of puts in perspective, but it was a lot. It was a great time and a lot of great memories there.
So we're a pro Pete Carroll podcast, and it's great to have someone to reaffirm.
Yeah, we love
He's
Pete,
the man.
because he just gives off the amazing vibe.
Yes.
We might have been in Cincinnati once. I don't know if you remember that. And he was like super friendly and chatting with us.
And that's how he is. I'm telling you, that's not
I think that's how he is to everybody.
Yes.
The bank teller, he treats the bank teller the same way he treats you.
Yes.
So the Pete Carroll thing's not an act.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So the Pete Carroll thing's not an act. Anybody in that locker room. So like you talk about Legion of Boom.
Yes.
So you got guys, you know, Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor. Quick story on those guys. How much do you follow basketball?
A little bit.
Like if I said the name Cam Thomas, Brooklyn Nets shooting guard, like he's a pretty good player.
Yes.
So as we're putting notes together last night, he does the notes sometimes, and we use the word like erratic, manic,
Yeah.
psycho. The notes are just terrible.
I'm a little high energy, and sometimes my mind goes in a few different directions.
That's fair. I've been there.
So he starts writing down names of Legion of Boom and writes down Cam Thomas.
Yeah, that's...
And I
not
read it
the
over
same
and I'm like,
guy.
who's Cam Thomas? That's not, he didn't play for Seattle.
You got Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas combined.
That's it, absolutely.
So not the Cam Thomas basketball player, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Sherman, those
Yes.
guys, being in the locker room with them, like story, takeaway, what do you have for us there?
So I'd say the first guy that's I want to talk about is Cam Chancellor. Cam, as everyone who watches football, and if you haven't seen this, just go on YouTube and download Cam Chancellor, or search, not download, hits. And I mean, this guy was...
He's Ronnie Lott just 20
yes,
years later.
he's the enforcer of the entire NFL.
Yeah.
The black visor, being one of
Yes.
the first students
Yeah.
wearing a black visor and just taking guys' heads off.
This was the thing that was crazy, though, is off the field, he was the nicest dude.
Come on.
The nicest guy, a team captain, like one of the leaders of the team, of guys that I like think about my time. And if I were to rank like guys that I have the utmost respect for in my 8-year career, Cam is right at the top of that list.
Okay, what's that list? Like, give us a few names of the... We don't have to do the disrespect
Yes.
list. You can just do the respect list.
Cam, no particular order. KJ Wright, Cam Chancellor, Matthew Stafford.
That's good.
Creature Man.
That's my guy. I would put him on. He's on a lot of lists, but he's not on this list. Let's see. I would put Jimmy Graham for a variety of reasons on this one.
What about opponents? Like, guys you went against?
Like when I say like guys I respect, it's more so like not just football, like all encompassing.
Good people.
Good people, but also like guys that were maybe not in the best situations, but handled it super well.
Stafford is a good example.
Stafford is he's, and I don't have a relationship with Matthew anymore. Obviously, I did when I was there, but I remember sitting here thinking like, this guy is incredible. I mean, he was so talented. He was such a professional. He was so nice. He was great in the community. Awesome family. Like, just don't have enough good things to say about him. And I know there's a lot of Lions fans on here, but it's like, not currently, but at the time, he's stuck in this hellhole with like originally Jim Schwartz. Now, I liked Caldwell. I thought he was a good coach.
Yeah.
And then
Wasn't good enough.
correct. And then Matthew
So we had to
Patricia.
hire the rocket science.
Yeah.
Who was just a dweeb.
So no.
idiot.
So Matt Patricia in that like how was being in a Lions locker room under Matt Patricia, Stafford led? How was that?
Bloodbath. It was a bloodbath. I mean,
Bloodbath.
I remember, there's a million stories, but I remember Patricia comes in and he's like, this is an OTAs again, so we haven't even played a game. And he's like, if you guys look at your helmets today, you'll notice there's no lion logo. He's like, the way I see it, not one person here has earned the right to have the lion logo on their helmet.
So not Matt Stafford.
And that's right. It's like, I bet Matthew Stafford at this time, I think he'd been in the league for 9 years.
Yeah.
Like Decker would have been.
Yes, Decker. I'm like, but also this isn't like, if this were, the Essex Ravens, which I love the Ravens, but like that age group, it's like, I get, that as a motivating factor. There's a lot of history with the Essex Ravens. Like, hey, if they want to make that part of their culture.
These are men who have
Correct.
been in the NFL for years.
And it's like, dude, what are you like saying? Like, we're not going to go out and try hard? Like, there's 90 guys in the team right now. Only 53 are making it. The vast majority of guys in this team are trying extremely hard. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. And if they aren't, like, you need to go up to them and be like, you're not doing enough. You don't take the logos off our helmet and treat us like we're infant kids.
So he was trying to motivate the locker room and just lost everybody who wasn't already lost.
What was tough was we had a insanely physical off season, and he managed everything, and it was like almost like Big Brother. Like, he'd be like, so and so only benched 335 for 6. 4 weeks ago, I benched it for 7. What are you doing in the weight room? Okay, and it's like we're all on the team, and he's always doing it in front of everyone, And I know, and I heard this is a Belichick thing. Like, we'd turn on a practice, and like, let's say Matthew Stafford drops back and is like, hey man, I'm in OTAs. There's a receiver that young guy, I'm gonna give him a shot here. He's running a go. I'm throwing a 1-on-1, see what happens. Guy gets covered, so Matthew's like, you know what? I'm gonna throw this ball where it's either like out of bounds or my guy makes a crazy catch. Mm-hmm. So it lands out of bounds, and like, we would start the film review as a team, which we didn't even do this with Pete. Like, we didn't watch. I'm not watching our own defense I'm watching our stuff. There's only so many hours with the union. But he starts like, let's take a look at practice. Boom, puts it on there. It's like, hey, just a question, staff. Did you know that in the history of the NFL, no one's ever completed a pass out of bounds?
Wow. He said that. Like, Patricia said that.
To Matthew Stafford in front of the whole team. And then it's like, now, like me, where I'm like, if he's giving it to staff, he's giving it to everybody. And it just never, it was ploy after ploy. Like even, you're talking about when he lost the locker room. So here's kind of a, this is probably my all-time Matt Patricia like sequence here.
Okay, go to town.
So we have these OTA. I can't even. It's almost comical for me to recite this. Dude.
It's all good.
So we have these OTAs, and it's carnage. Like for OTAs, it is absurd. He's running us into the ground. At one point, he's canceling practice so we can do like little drills where you compete against guys, and they're filming it, and then they're editing winner and loser on the thing, and then they're putting it on a reel throughout the building. So like if you lost the tennis ball chase, there'd be a big arrow when you're in the hot tub that points to you saying loser.
It's sort of a movie, right?
It's ridiculous. But one day he comes in there in OTAs, and this is going to lead to the beginning of the season. And he's like, hey, I was going to keep this a surprise, but I'm throwing you guys a bone. And I'd be like, yo, what's this bone? And he says, we're going to the Arlington Military Cemetery tomorrow. So we go, and we good here, guys? We look like we got drama, man.
Well, so the mic is on a little table, and you can't write on the table because the mic's going to pick that up. Not this great story.
Yes.
That Luke's. I want to hear the great story.
Okay.
This is not ear rape. There's going to be ear rape later on. It's just a slight vibration.
Fair. Okay.
That's fine.
Yes.
See, he exaggerates.
Yes. So, but Patricia goes. He's like, tomorrow we're gonna skip an OTA, and we're gonna fly to Virginia to go to the military cemetery. And I'm like, holy smoke. She's like, so bring your ID in. So we show up, and as a Canadian, it was very cool. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I believe I'm saying this right. The Arlington, I think it's like the
Arlington National Cemetery.
Correct.
Yeah.
They do like the changing of the guard, like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
It's right by the Pentagon.
Yes. So it was really like a unique experience if you're a history guy. Pretty awesome. So I'm like, and obviously a good team bonding day. So I'm thinking like, man, our guy actually threw us a little bit of a bone here. Fast forward. Camp goes, and it's wild. And what I mean wild is like, we have the first week of which is nuts. We have the second week, which is a joint practice in Oakland against John Gruden, where we opened with a live goal line period. We're going to put the ball at the 1, and it's live. It's like...
So this is Gruden and Patricia just
Correct.
Trying to be the man.
We go back, and I believe you guys might have to help me here. It's the coach for the Giants. Was it Pat Shurmur? Is it Shurmur?
Shurmur, the old
man?
Yes.
Pat Shurmur. Yeah.
Didn't want to go to a live goal line period. Patricia blew. So we landed back in Detroit, and New York was waiting for us at our facility the next day.
Whoa, Bush League, right?
Like,
and then it was like, these guys, which was even more demoralizing, was like we'd go out and practice, and like Shurmur was like, yo, that was a real physical day. And he would cut his guys loose, and we would still be practicing. And backtrack. In Oakland, one of the days practice was done, and Patricia goes, I'll show you what our advantage is. Get on the goal line. And we were running hundreds around the Oakland Raiders huddle because they were still breaking down. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
So would you talk to Raiders guys and they'd be like, what
are y'all doing?
Yeah.
What are y'all, like the day before the preseason game, we were out there just getting screamed at running 2-minute drill, helmet on, and the Raiders came out in shorts and a t-shirt. Some of these guys had flip-flops on. And they're like looking at us like, not like, whoa, these guys are real tough. They're like, these guys are morons.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not as though it was a great organization that was respected by the league. Say, oh, we should do that too.
Correct. Great point.
I think there's a difference. Like you talk about Patricia losing the locker room.
So then I would say we lost it after week 1.
Like there's a difference between that and then like the Dan Campbell rah leader of men.
Yes.
Was like people listen to Dan Campbell speak for 30 seconds and he just wins us over. Like he won the fan base over in the first presser. Right? The whole kneecap stuff.
Yes.
Like, leader of men. He, like, going battle for him. Pete Carroll, different.
But same thing. Guys played up very hard for him.
Whereas Patricia, just like opposite. Not a leader.
Again, this is leading into week 1. So remember that Arlington, Virginia story? So generally, in the NFL, everywhere that I know of, this is back when they had 4 preseason games. Everyone would play their 4th game on a Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the coaches would be like, yo, you guys are off. Stay in town because we got to make cuts and guys get traded. Like, it's kind of a crazy weekend. Okay, got it. Well, we do the thing, and Patricia's like, you boys think that you have tomorrow off?
Oh, no.
We're going to practice. And they have guys getting cut in the middle of practice. So they're like walking them out of practice.
Man, that's
okay.
Bush League.
So then we get back Monday. So we have Saturday, Sunday off because the CBA mandates that we have to have at least those 2 days off. So we get back Monday. And again, at the time I'd only been in Seattle. But every time this Monday was like, you just took 2 days off. You just had camp. We're rolling into week 1. And you guys, I think, might remember this play. But we generally do a half-day Monday, take Tuesday off, and Wednesday is the start of a normal NFL week. So we get in there on Monday, and I'm thinking, like, we'll be here from, like, 9 to 1, you know? Patricia gets up first thing in the morning. He's like, you fucking guys think that we're going to jog around here like this is a bonus Monday? He's like, the way I see it, remember that day you were at the Virginia Military, the National Military Center or whatever, cemetery? And I'm like, he's like, you guys owe me a fucking day. He's like, and I remember sitting there like taken aback, like, oh, it's a day. This was your idea.
So he took the date back and gave it as a bonus day.
So bad.
That is weak sauce.
Ridiculous. And then he goes, we're going to go full pads, and we're not even going to look at the Jets. We're not even because we were playing the Jets on Sunday Night Football. So Sam Darnold's first game.
Pick 6's first play.
This is where we're going to get into that.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, we go out here have a 3-hour bloodbath practice. It was absurd. Okay, and I'm like, holy smokes. So we go, regular week starts, we prepare for the Jets, we're at home, new regime, Patriots guy, start the game-o, boom, believe it was my boy Quandre Diggs.
It was for sure
Pick
Diggs.
6. Yep. I remember being on the sideline at Ford Field thinking, holy shit, man, place is rocking, like, whatever the hell we just went through, it was worth it. We're about to be sick. We're about to win.
That was it.
Yes.
That was the high.
We lost that game, I think, by 35 points.
Yeah, got blown out.
Yes.
Blown out to a terrible Jets team. And then, again, just this is all kind of sequence here. We come in Monday, which is normal, and Patricia hits us up. We have a bloodbath film session, and he goes in. We do our little run, and he goes, hey, we got to flush that game. I want to meet everybody outside. This is after, like, the team run. And Matt Castle was our backup quarterback.
Yep.
And he taps me and goes, I bet we're going to bury the football. And I'm like... Bury the football? What do you mean? He goes, bury it like the game's over, it's been buried. And I remember laughing because Matt Castle is one of the funniest people I've ever met. And I'm like, this guy's funny. I can't believe he thought of that.
He's a locker room guy, vet.
The man, yes. Walk out there, I shit you not, there's a fucking football and a shovel in the ground.
And everybody's got to do one shovel.
Well, it was funny because I look over at, no, they didn't do that, which maybe that's what ended up happening is probably a story for off camera. But so they're digging it, and I find Matt Castle. I'm like, how did you know this? Did he tell you? He goes, 16 years ago when I was a rookie, Bill Belichick did the exact same thing.
Nice.
And the funniest part, too, was beside the football was a pair of blue pants. That was the year where, for whatever reason, because I think back in the day, it was mainly silver pants.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we wore blue pants. I think we were blue on blue.
The blueberries, they call
Correct.
it. Yeah.
So Patricia goes, and by the way, the blue pants looked like fucking shit. So we're burying those too.
So good. That's the best.
So we bury those.
That's a good story.
But the worst part is, I remember thinking, like, don't they have to, like, approve all the jersey combos, like, way before the season? So, like, week 4.
You got to put the blueberries back.
Yeah, we're back in the blue pants. And I remember, like, strolling out and being like, I thought we fucking buried these, Matt.
So was there another additional conversation after the blue pants burial?
Well, this is where it got weird. Was he's like, we're never going to talk about this game again. We're never going to watch it. Like, it's done. Okay? And we're going to move on. So, of course, we had an early bye that week. And generally, bye weeks, guys, especially in the NFL, it's like you come in Monday, you watch the film from Sunday, and the coaches will be like, yo, we got Tuesday through X day off. Matt Patricia, you guys think I'm going to give you the week off? Like, I'm only mandated to give you a Thursday through whatever off. So, you know what we're going to do today? We're going to watch how our season's going. And at the time, I think we might have been like 2-4, 3-5. Like, but the division wasn't good. So, we were still, like, not out of the playoffs. First thing he does, be like, let's watch some film. Puts the Jets game on. And I'm like, I thought this game was buried.
That.
Not only are the blue pants around, the Jets game has come back. And it was never highlights. Wow. Like, Pete would play highlights. It was him. It was like, let's see what we did. And I'm like, we've seen this 15 times already. And it was just 3 hours straight of every single terrible play that's happened in the season this far. So I'm kind of painting an environment where it was like, for me, the hardest part was, I think we went 6-10 that year.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he kept saying, this is the way, you guys got to trust me. And I'm like, dude, it was hard for me personally because I had won a Super Bowl. I had lost a Super Bowl and won the NFC the next year. The next 2 years, in the playoffs, we got knocked out by the eventual NFC winner. So we got knocked out by Atlanta the year they blew it, and we got knocked out by Cam Newton and the Panthers the year.
That was a good Panther. That was the MVP, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then my 5th year in Seattle was the only year we went 9-7. A lot of team drama. Didn't make the playoffs. There was also some kicking issues, which I'm sure I got a feeling, according to the topics, we might get into a little bit. And it was like, I get what you're saying, where you're like, this is the way, but like, I also know another way, where there's bald eagles flying at practice, we're listening to music, we win 10 games every year, guaranteed, no matter how shit we play, and I got a ring so far, like...
Well, I think you can pull off the Patricia lunacy when you're Bill Belichick.
Correct. And you have Tom Brady.
Yeah. And you have Tom Brady.
You have Tom Brady. Like, and I'm not saying that Brady could do it without Belichick. I mean, he obviously did it in Tampa, or vice versa. I'm not saying
Belichick has done shit without Brady.
Correct. Where I'm like, Tom is in there, like, taking the shit, shoveling the shit from Bill and getting the squad right. Where it's like, this Lions team just left a Jim Caldwell, who I didn't play for, but everybody on the team loved.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And they were good. They went to the playoffs. We beat them in Seattle the one year.
This is can we get into that?
Yes.
Because do you remember that game?
Refresh my memory.
This is maybe Sunday or Monday Night Football where
the
was
punch
punched out of the end zone where Calvin fumbled on the goal.
I got a good one for
right.
this. I got a good one. So this
terrible.
is yes.
So I'll do my perspective while you get a drink.
Yes.
You go
Yes,
nuts.
please do.
So I don't know if you remember this. So I was like grade 7 maybe at the time, but still like psycho football fan.
Yep.
And it went really late, and I had basketball like 10 to 11 or something goofy where I had to miss some of the game. And the kind of the rule was right after basketball, you go to bed. So I went to bed right after basketball with the intention, this must have been Thursday or Sunday Night Football.
It was Sunday. It was Sunday night. No, it might have been Monday night.
It was during the week.
It was a Sunday or Monday Night Football game.
Because I went to school the next day with a sign around my neck.
Oh, that's right.
Saying, I'm in the bubble. Don't tell me the score. Because all my buddies and teachers knew I was a Psycho Lions guy.
That's funny, man.
So everyone just starts like punching me and making jokes about like punches and stuff. And I had no idea. Because I hadn't watched the game. So we recorded it. So I rush home 2:30. I probably bike into school. So I rip home, watch the game. Devastated. We hadn't talked about it. So that's my perspective of this game. This was 14 maybe?
Oh,
I want to say this would have been
15
or 16.
So it was after the playoff game.
Yes.
After the Lions game. Okay, so your perspective of that story.
Okay, so this never happened, but my mom used to work in Detroit.
Yep.
Right? So
shout out, Ma.
yes.
Shout out, Mom.
Yes.
Shout out,
So
Mom.
she hits me up. She's like, hey, you guys going to beat the Lions this week? And she would never call me and ask this stuff. And I'm like, we're going to fucking smoke the Lions. We always win on prime time. The Lions weren't that good. Like, we had just been to back-to-back Super Bowls. I'm like, we were incredible on prime time. They're coming out across the city. I'm like, Mom, there's no shot Detroit even keeps this game, like, remotely close in the fourth quarter. So she's like, I'm like, why are you asking? She's like, everybody at work, like, is all Lions fans, and, like, everyone knows I'm a Seahawks fan. Like, I don't want to go to work, with everyone poking fun kind of thing. And I'm like, Mom, don't worry about it. Like, talk your shit. We're going to win this thing. So game goes, and we're leading for the majority of the game. Yeah. But it wasn't a blowout, obviously. And all of a sudden, 2-minute drive comes, and Matthew Stafford is just
on
a
fire.
machine.
Yep.
And against the Legion of Boom. And I'm like...
Like peak Legion of Boom.
Peak. I'm and it was just like, ding, 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 ding. Like, I'm like, and looking up, and I'm like, not only does it look like they're going to score, but we don't have any time. Like, it's not like we're going to get the ball back with 1:20. So, Megatron gets it. Cam punches the ball out.
Yeah. Right on the goal line.
Right on the goal line. And the place goes nuts. It was crazy in there. And I remember our whole sideline is now obviously in jubilation. Like, we just got to win. We'll talk about the punch in a sec. But I'm sitting there, like, shaking my head like this. And I do got to give another shout out. Before the game, I got to connect with Rob Campana, who is the Mr. Lions. He's the best.
Yeah, that's my guy.
You know? So it was like, and I've known Rob since a kid. He actually, we do a small pause to shout out Rob. He brought me to my first ever pro football game at the Pontiac Silverdome to watch Barry Sanders. So how is this dude
related to Dom?
I know there's some Campanas that I know that have Lions connections.
Yes.
So Campanas, shout out Campanas.
Shout out the Campanas.
Hey, Dom.
Yeah, so Rob is on the other sideline. I see him for the game, like, and again, it was a pretty cool moment. I hope he would say the same thing. But we come back and back to the punch out. I'm sitting there like stone faced, shaking my head. And my boy looks at me and goes, "What? Like, what's the matter with you? We got a photo?"
Yeah. Okay, keep
now
going.
we can keep talking.
"What's the matter with you, Luke?" And I said, his name is Cooper Helfit. I go, "Coop," I'm like, "I'm happy. I'm thrilled we won." I'm like, "I just got to take this moment in for a sec." And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. And I'm like, what we just witnessed here, from the age of, let's call it 6, to when I went to college at 17, 18 years old, I watched from my couch in LaSalle, Ontario, every single Sunday. And it is so weird for me to now literally be on the other side of it. Where it's
give it to him.
Yes.
Give it to
and
him.
I didn't feel good about it.
I've been taking it for so
Correct.
long.
I did not.
Just
I'm like,
wrong.
and I immediately felt bad for like all of the Windsor people, you know, because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, only the Lions lose in the sense. Now, here's the controversial thing I'll say. I couldn't stand when the Lions fans were like, the fucking punch screwed us. Dude, if KJ Wright doesn't touch the ball, it's going out of bounds anyways. Like, if it was a situation where it was like a huge scrum and KJ punched it and it was like, oh, I don't know who their guy was that year, but like Calvin got the ball punched out. Whomever was playing, like, he was right there about to jump on it. The ball popped up. KJ could have easily put it in his chest. He could have easily, you know,
let it go out
of bounds. It was not really a play, in my opinion. It's just a weird rule that nobody fucking knew. So that's why I was like, I don't think of it in the sense of Lions got robbed because of the punch. I just think it's a really...
It was a weird karma
Lions
thing.
way to lose.
Yep. Well, it was in a tough era of like, I don't know if you remember the hands to the face penalty.
Yes.
To the Hail Mary. Like, it was that era of Lions football.
Which is another one where you kind of feel like you get sewered by the refs. I understand.
It was like mediocre, like good, but not great teams.
Yes.
And then just everything goes wrong to make that team worse.
Correct.
Or not win games they should win.
Facts.
And that was kind of right in that era.
Yes.
And that's why this era of Lions football is such a big deal for us.
Agreed.
Because this is the first time we've had a team that's like a legit Lions team.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, go nuts.
Okay,
Please do.
As big-time current Lions fans, did you think that losing the NFC Championship was the worst way to lose yet?
I'll let you go, because I have a very stoic mindset.
I have a couple of losses in my life that really hurt.
Okay.
One is when Larry Bird stole the ball in the Bad Boy Pistons.
Yes.
I don't know if people remember that. Like Coach Rob and some of the old timers are going to remember that. That was terrible. Cordell Stewart throwing the long touchdown pass to beat Michigan the last play of the game.
Okay.
That was terrible. And then losing to San Fran.
Zan.
That's
It's
right.
on there.
It's right
Okay.
up there. It's not
to me
1, but it's probably 3.
Yeah, fair. But you're going to say no.
So, I don't know. This is going to get a little philosophical here.
Yeah, I like that.
Stoicism.
Yeah.
Do you dabble?
I dabble.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I'm more than dabble now. I'm trying to get him on it.
Okay.
I tried it. Okay, you go. No,
Just like the nerdy Marcus Aurelius stuff.
Yes.
And basically, I wasn't into that stuff then. But now I'm just kind of like, it happened. It doesn't take away from beating the Rams and getting a win.
Great win. That was a great win.
That
was the best game I've ever been to in my life.
Stafford was amazing.
Amazing.
He was amazing.
I'm on DSN like Rams are going to dog walk the Lions. Not even because the Lions were bad. The Rams were that good.
Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of the media guys were like, Rams are 3-point
And
dog.
Matthew Stafford coming home. It was like the greatest storyline for him.
And
We
he
can do
was
an episode
getting
on that,
hammered. We ended up getting pretty good seats.
Yes.
And he was just getting hammered. He just kept coming back off the sidelines and throwing darts.
And he's like missing a chunk out of his hand.
Yeah.
And got hit in it, like it was everything.
Right back,
Yeah.
slinging the ball. Yes.
So I'm kind of like, it hurts.
Yes.
Doesn't take away from the Rams game. Doesn't take away from the Bucks game. This was a great season. If it's the only one, it's gonna hurt, but it's not gonna affect.
And we had
those wins.
We had great memories. We really did.
For sure.
And I can't, you can understand how pumped Detroit and Windsor was for these victories. Like, streets are packed in Detroit, and it was like minus 15 degrees.
I'll tell a bit of a story.
Yeah, go nuts.
We would kind of park far,
Yes.
just because parking's a madhouse for Lions
Yeah.
games, even when they weren't good.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when you're a player.
Yeah, because I know where you guys.
Yes.
get
Been
out.
over there, and I'm like, this like Seattle. I'm pulling into a nice garage. No fans. No, I'm not going outside. Not in Detroit.
You're stuck in gridlock.
So we parked far. We don't. Do you want to say where we parked?
Yeah, it's okay.
Just shout out the tunnel. Shout out tunnel. So we
Yes.
parked on the
So I
Detroit side.
park on the Detroit side of the tunnel
Okay.
And we
because I get access.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then we just run through the gridlock, and it's just the atmosphere is nuts, and we're high-fiving, and Isaac had about 78 rolls of streamers on his head.
we just got all of them and just wrapped them around.
He
me.
became streamer man.
Okay.
So guys, streamer guys, streamer. So we just look like absolute psychos.
Yes.
So it's like super, super cold on the Rams game.
Yeah.
And we sprint from Ford Field back to the tunnel.
Yeah.
Just like I said, it was like New Year's.
Yes.
Where I was like, there's another picture in middle of the episode.
Yeah, keep
I'm
going.
like, this is our New Year's. Everyone is just on the streets.
Yeah.
Like it was, and
It's Mardi Gras. It's Mardi Gras.
Yes, it's Mardi Gras.
Gras.
That's a good
in
analogy.
Detroit.
So like whenever I'm like, man, you know what? We should have beat the Niners. It's like, we beat the Rams and we had
Yes.
that.
Oh, I didn't mean it in that sense. I just
Yeah.
thought the way
It was tough.
It
like,
hurts.
And what was also tough is, and this is obviously kind of shitty of me to say, but I think Detroit dog walks Kansas City. I think they win the Super Bowl.
Well, it's easy for us to say like, we would have beat.
The
we
matchup
would've
wise?
crushed-
Honestly, Purdy
Matchup-wise?
did not play well in the Super Bowl. Purdy didn't even play
No.
that well against the Lions.
Matchup wise, I'm like Detroit.
Punch him in the mouth.
Again, what's hard for me to stomach is as a guy, and I said that I had a pretty big rant on TSN, but I'm like, you just don't like. I get that the Lions are going to be favored to win the NFC North next year, and they should be.
Yep.
But it's the NFL. Like, what happens if
Stuff
someone
happens.
gets hurt?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. They're not going to be playing, and respect to him, Baker Mayfield in the second round of the
correct.
playoffs this year. That's not going to happen again.
Not going to happen.
They're not going to play.
Jordan Love's a year better.
Where are you on Jordan Love?
Stud.
So I'm
Same with Jared Goff. I know there's a little Lions fan.
Yeah.
Stud.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm afraid. I'm a bit afraid of Jordan Love.
You should be.
I'm
but
afraid of Jordan Love. Here's the
Goff's
interesting
still
thing.
going to be great as well.
We met Antonio Freeman at Little Caesars a few weeks ago when we were watching
Yes.
the tournament. He's not hot on Jordan Love.
Really?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised.
I would
'cause
disagree with
just assumed
that. Yeah.
that everybody was.
So
Anyway,
we've got so
let's
many.
talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
the Lions.
So Lions. So we talked about your not super pleasant memories with the Lions.
Yeah, it was a tough year. It was a
fair.
tough year.
Different regime.
Different regime. It would again. You do all this. You'd shovel the shit if you were good, but to spend a year like for me was tough. Was like I'm at home. I'm like, this is another story that here's a fresh one for the pod. And this is God's honest truth.
Okay.
I had a 3-year deal to Carolina for a shade under $10 million, and Detroit's original offer was 1 year for $1.5 million.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm pull into my driveway in LaSalle, call my agent, and I say, tell Carolina I'm signing with them. And he goes, let me call Bob Quinn. He goes, let's just do one more thing. I can tell you want to play for Detroit. And I'm like,
Who your agent said that to you?
yeah. So he's like, Luke, talk to Bob. He's like, I've got Detroit up to 1 for 2.5. They have incentives for $500,000. And the thing about the Carolina deal was it was like 3.33 per year, but only year 1 was guaranteed. And it was like, hey, you're going to go to Detroit, ball out, and sign a huge ticket the next year, or you're going to go to Carolina and play behind Greg Olsen. So I'm like, I'm going to Detroit, like, Patricia, I still have the voicemail on my phone. I keep it on there.
Whoa.
Patricia, like, will play, like, yo, man, I'm coming off a plane. Like, we need you here, buddy. Like, let's get this thing done. Okay, and it's like, and then I get there, and it like at one point they asked me to babysit Mike Robb. Okay, that was the tight end at the time.
Yep.
I'm like, I didn't sign up to be a babysitter. Like, and Greg Olson broke his foot, I think, in week 1 and didn't play a snap the rest of the year.
Right. Oh,
It's like, so I'm sitting in like these meetings where we're 4 and 8 at the time,
You
and I'm
buried
like,
jerseys and
we've
tape.
buried jerseys. We've been verbally harassed all year.
Buried blueberry pants.
We suck. Okay, and I'm just like, I'm having the worst statistical year of my life.
Oh, that's
but
rough.
the one thing I will say that is cool for me is like, so as you guys know, we're in Windsor right now. Last night I was at my parents' home, and you guys have some very cool memorabilia sports stuff here. My mom did some framing, and it's mainly like I've got a draft thing at Rice. I've got the NFLPA Bowl we talked about earlier, jersey frame from that. Both Super Bowl jerseys are framed.
We got your shoes and a ball.
Yes, but I have a huge...
You probably have better. Your mom's probably got better
I've got
stuff.
a few things, yes. But one of the coolest things for me, now that I've like reflected on it, is I do have a really beautiful frame jersey and a picture of me in the My Cause, My Cleats game. In that year, I was the Canadian Tire Jumpstart person.
Yep.
So the cleats have the Canadian flag on them. And I was like, beyond all the shitty, like, Patricia stuff, for me as a kid who, like you, watched the Lions every Sunday with Herman Moore, Barry Sanders, Robert Porcher.
Chris Spielman.
Royalty.
To be out there sporting the Honolulu blue and silver is still a very, very cool thing in my life.
Wow.
Is that a fair...
Tingles!
Okay.
I just got tingles in the back of my
neck. It
neck.
just wasn't the fairy tale ending that I was really hoping for.
Tell you what, let's just stick with the first part of the story. Let's not talk about the second part of the story.
That's right.
Let's go
So we did
through
Detroit.
a couple of questions.
Yes.
Coach Rob question's a good one.
So Coach Rob, fan of the show, shout out Coach Rob.
Coach Rob.
Coach Rob, another guest.
Yeah,
Another
okay.
high-profile guest. So I told him, like, hey, like, this might be happening. Give me a question. A coach who's, pretty influential for me.
Yeah.
And, of course, he goes and says a question about your coaches in your youth. So how did coaches in your youth impact your career? Or anything that you learned when you were a kid that you kind of brought with you through your whole career, Super Bowl, ups, downs, that kind of thing.
So I'll get into coaches in general, but I think Coach Rob will appreciate this as well. One of the things I think was if I had to rank like some of the biggest helps for me, was the environment of football I grew up in. And I'm not trying to dog Windsor football because I love it. As you know, I try and give back as much as I can.
You do great. You're doing so good.
Yes.
See you Saturday.
But, yes, see you Saturday. That's right. But I got down to Rice, and I remember sitting here thinking, this is the coolest place I've ever been to. The weight room was sick. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. It's like a football mecca where I can just go to this facility. They have the coolest weight room. We got a huge locker room, equipment. We're sponsored first by Nike, later by Adidas. Like, I was over the moon. It was like, I got there, and one of the kids from Katy High School was like, my high school weight room's better than this fucking place. This place is a dump. And I'm like, a dump? This is a nice place I've ever seen. And it was like, and I'm sure Coach Rob will be able to reiterate this, the holy names, but like at Villanova, when we strolled out to practice, like, this guy's wearing his LaSalle Pee-wee jersey. This guy's wearing a Rick Villy jersey from 10 years ago. This guy's got a LaSalle Sabres hockey jersy that he cut the sleeves off of.
It's so good.
And it's like, you guys are, like, we don't have bibs, like, we don't know we know who's on defense, but it's not, like, color-coded. So it's like, I grew up in this environment where, like, we played ball because we wanted to.
Yep.
It wasn't, like, the thing to do. And that really helped me.
That's the only thing you do.
You do.
Yeah.
Where it was like, when I got there and everyone's like, man, this shit sucks. I still was like, this is incredible. This experience coming from what I'm used to is out of this world. And then as far as coaches go, I got to give I loved my high school coach, Tim Maitre.
Shout out Coach Tim.
Coach Tim, yes. Yeah. And then Coach Mills, to me, was a huge reason I was able to get to Rice, and I'll just do a quick shout out to Coach Mills on this. But when I first started talking to Rice, I was not even thinking about playing football. It was hockey and then maybe baseball.
Yeah.
You, like,
yes,
had a drink with the Blue Jays.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, all of a sudden I go to one football camp, and Rice is like, we need to see some film. And I'm like, film? What do you mean? Like, do you got a highlight film? And I'm like, no, well, fuck it. Like, dude, I'm going to the NHL. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And like Glenn was a guy who, and back then it's not as easy as it was now. Like it's not on Huddle. We didn't have Huddle. Glenn's over there cooking up DVDs, going through all of the film from the Ravens. Help me out a crazy amount. Yes.
That is cool, and Coach Mills.
Yes, set that, and I sent it out, and the film got a lot of Rice was the first team, but I ended up with a lot of like different options.
Cool.
Thanks to Coach Mills, and also I think the Ravens organization. Because here's another quick true story, and for all the locals playing, when Rice offered me, they got the film in, and he said, "Luke, it's a little bit of a dog on Villanova." But they're like, whatever team is the blue and white, because those are one of our jerseys. You look great on there, but it's very hard for us to judge this. And I'm like, again, I'm at 17, 18. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's not the highest level of football. And he's like, however, the black and teal team, looked like both sides of the ball, had some good football players, and we really had a much easier time evaluating that. So that to me, it's funny. Like people always ask me all the time, and to me, that was a pretty cool moment and a cool moment for the Ravens.
Okay,
so I'll jump to pros.
I have a funny question from Doran Anselin.
Okay, Doran's our guy.
You'll like this.
Shout out Doran.
Okay, so if you never made the NFL and you were living in the community, living in LaSalle, would you be 1, a high school gym teacher, or 2, ripping darts working construction?
I love that. You know what? My personality wants to say ripping darts, working construction, but the reality is
you actually had a real education.
Correct. I probably would not be ripping, but it does sound a lot cooler.
It does sound cool. There's a real shortage of skilled trades in the area.
No question.
You got a bit of free time.
Yes.
Okay, yes. I got a professional question.
Yes.
By professional, I mean it's not serious.
Okay.
But it was during your career.
Yes.
Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, the man.
Skittles thing. Was it overstated?
No.
The thing was that big a deal?
I remember the playoff runs early where, and I'm not bullshitting. Everything I've said on this pod, I'm telling you guys.
It's a fact. It's called the truth.
Yes,
it's called the truth with Tal Isaac and Luke.
I remember being Marshawn scores, and I was going to celebrate with him. This is a playoff game. It was a huge. It might have been the Niners game in the NFC Championship, one of those big ones. And being like, I did a full pivot because there were so many Skittles coming.
From fans?
From fans. Dude.
It hurt.
It was legit. Marshawn would score, and it'd just be like, whoa, whoa. And, because fans are trying to get it to the field, you can't, this isn't floating them. They're throwing heaters. And I'm like, bro, I don't want to get 3 Skittles through my ear hole and one hit me in the eye.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is nuts, dude.
Okay, that's great.
Yes.
Skittles thing's great.
It was legit.
How was playing with Russell Wilson?
It was, you know what, I'll say this about Russ, is he's a different dude, and I think everyone kind of knows that. But early in his career, he was a wildly competitive man. And there's a moment, again, if any of the sports nerds out here, I'm sure they can find it. This would have been our Super Bowl year. You want to talk about Russell Wilson plays. So just to put perspective how big each play is in the NFL, our Super Bowl year, we had the 1 seed. The Niners had the 5 seed at 12-4. We would have lost the tiebreaker. So if we would have lost one more game, that NFC Championship game is at Candlestick.
Whoa.
Totally different vibe. Mm-hmm. We're playing Houston. We're getting spanked offensively. Defensively, we did well. We ended up winning this game in overtime.
You win the Grays?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
You know it.
Yeah.
I remember I'm a stupid rookie. This is game 4, maybe game 3. And I'm like, man, we're playing like shit, and we're going to lose. We shouldn't lose this game. Russ had a scramble on 4th and 1 that to this day I do not know how he completed. And he got up, he was frothing at the mouth, and it was just for me being 23 years old, I never seen anybody in my life pull something like that off. So I get right now he's an interesting dude. He's always kind of been an interesting dude. Well, but my experience with him, he was very competitive.
$88 million on the chin to get rid of him. So he's probably not thought of too highly.
And I probably would guess, I haven't played with him in a long time, but, I think guys, I'm not saying this, again, I don't know Russ, know him, I don't know him how he is right now, but it's a lot different when you're 24 years old and he's on his rookie deal. And now all of a sudden he's probably got 100 schmil in the bank.
Yeah.
He's got a couple kids at home.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not competitive, but it's
he was hungry.
It was weird for me to see the kind of change where it's in Seattle he was the man versus Denver they're eating 88 million to get rid of him.
So retirement.
Yes.
Retirement.
Yes.
TSN.
Yeah.
2 things.
Yeah.
How's that? And do you need an assistant?
I like that. Yeah. So it's funny.
Questions we have.
Not me, Isaac.
yes.
Or 2 assistants.
Yeah. So TSN is a lot of fun, especially the Jay Onright stuff. The Jay Onright stuff. That
Seems
guy
fun.
is. You want to talk about great people? Jay Onright is just a tremendous person on the camera and even better off it. So it's fun working with him because I feel like he just puts me in great, positions. But also, what's fun for me, it keeps me connected to the game. Like, I'm in there. I wouldn't call him an assistant, but there's a video guy. And it's like, yo, cut that play. So, like, not the highlight reel, but when they ask me the questions, I'll know the reel that's coming. So it's like, if I want to talk about a play, it's like, hey, let's get this thing barrowed. So I want to circle this guy. I want this arrow here. And the people at TSN are very skilled. So it's been fun. And also, like, for me, I think it's been very cool to try and, like, grow the game a bit. Like, one of the things, and I know I've told you guys this many times, but, like, I've always wanted to be kind of an ambassador for the country of Canada.
You're doing great.
I appreciate that. And now it's like, if
makes
you're
a
a kid,
difference.
turning on TSN, it's like, who's this guy? Wait, the dad goes, that kid grew up in LaSalle. And, like, again, I'm not trying to dog anyone who's gone different routes, but you guys... I grew up in LaSalle. I went to the elementary school I was supposed to go to. I went to the high school I was...
Yeah, no academy.
Okay, I went to the high
bullshit.
school. I was wearing a LaSalle Sabres cut off jersey for practice. And played for the Ravens. Like, it wasn't like, hey,
Like your
we gotta
dad's
move
doing
this
taxes
guy.
on Cabana.
Yes, it's like, and it was funny because my senior year, my parents struggled with this. I speak all the American lingo, but in grade 12, my parents are like, do we send Luke to St. Mary's Orchard Lake? Someone had mentioned it to me, and they're like, yo, he'll get an offer from Michigan. He'll go there. He'll do this. But at the end of the day, my parents are like, yo, if you're good enough, like, they'll find you.
That's the line.
Yeah. And honestly, so just now
And if
kind
you're
of...
6'5",
Yes.
and you're 250 pounds, and you're on a 4.46,
You can't block anybody.
You can't block us all.
anybody.
Oh, I could until I ran fast, and then I couldn't anymore. But, so that's the TSN thing for me, is to kind of, like, somewhat be a role model where, like, kids turn into the Monday night game, be like, hey, Dad, who's this guy? Hey, man, he's a Canadian cat, played 8 years. Like, that to me is special.
Dude, the bike crash stories are awesome. So fun.
Ridiculous.
And then the Texas barbecue one, where you told that one was a while ago.
Yes.
That's a great story.
Yes.
Hey, how do folks find that stuff?
So he is saying, what's your Instagram handle? Is what
Okay,
he's trying to say.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's at @LWilson_82. But Wilson's got 2 L's. You got to get him in there.
2 L's.
2 L's.
Okay.
Yes.
So is there anything? Do we even want to touch on Super Bowl 49? It's been pretty positive. We've talked about some negative stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want to just talk about that at all? Like,
If you want to, do you want to talk about it?
what do you want to say about it? You were there, we weren't.
I mean, it's the worst moment of my Seahawks, career. It's unfortunate because it's one of those things where it's like you look back and you're like, man, there's probably like a 2% chance of that happening.
Less.
The ESPN
Yeah.
percentage of winning was super high.
Correct.
Maybe you run the ball. I don't know.
And that was the tough part, is there's a lot of things where I'm like, what happened? And what was also tough is, like, we never really got an answer as players as to, like, who
called that play?
I would have just loved to even hear the dialogue, because, like, it's not necessarily like, hey, you do this, you do that, you do this. It's like, hey, should I throw the ball? And, like, does someone else be like, no, like, run the ball. We've got this. Like, I would love to know.
This is Marshawn, like, peak.
And the worst part was we had a goal line plan where Marshawn played fullback, and we called it fullback at 0, and Max Unger, who was a great center, would play center and basically run right at Max, and whichever way Max just shielded, Marshawn's there. And we had specifically put this in for the Patriots for the goal line. So it was like, we had the exact run play. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
That's
And it was funny because selfishly, and I've said this before, but like when you get the call in the huddle, at first I was like, holy fuck, we're throwing.
So as soon as the play was called, you were
right away I knew it was not the play I thought. I thought we'd go goal line. But then right away they called 11 personnel. So one of the things that we had a ton of success was we called it 94 buck, which was your generic zone read out of the gun. And we did it on the goal line all the time because we'd basically get the other team into nickel. Okay, and then you still have Marshawn. Yes, he's getting the ball deeper in the backfield, but if they really crash that, everyone's slamming in, Russ would pull it and walk in.
Yep.
So like the 2 weeks before against Green Bay, now they were longer. Russ scored one on the goal line by pulling it. And then the Marchand touchdown to go ahead to get to 21 points, or ended up being 22, was also the same exact play. He just didn't pull it. So my thought was like,
Just
you know what?
play.
I get it. We don't want to go to a play we've never ran before. We're sticking with our bread and butter. We're going to call 94 buck. And quite frankly, 94 buck for me is the easiest job because I arc the D end to a DB who's usually 45 pounds lighter than me. And if he jukes me...
Did you block him?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, nice.
And if he jukes me outside, when you're on the 1, Russ just cuts it inside. So, the DB's going to lose.
Yeah.
And then we get in the huddle and we call the play. And I remember thinking, wow, it's wild that we're not running buck. But then what's even crazier is my first thought is, what if I catch the game-winning, Super Bowl winning TD?
That'd be pretty cool.
And you get up there and then there's this moment of why am I even thinking this? So we talked about earlier off camera, man zone stuff.
Yeah.
I'm on the zone side and on the 1 yard line, 99% chance, which they did, they're playing cover 0, which is man.
Yeah.
So it's I'm like, this is not going to me. As I line up, I'm like, fuck, it's going the other way. And then I was probably the last guy in America to realize what happened. Because I had a corner route and the interception was behind me. So I didn't see it. All I heard was guys yelling. And then I turn around and I see them all celebrating. And I'm like, what just happened? And they're like, we threw a pick. So I didn't actually see it.
Oh, man, that sucks.
It was bizarre. And what was tough, too, is I felt like that, and this is also pretty well documented, but if you were to talk to a lot of Seahawks guys, that was kind of like the beginning of the end. It caused a lot
I
of
could see that.
drama in our
Sure.
locker room. I thought there was a lot of
And
resentment.
it probably pushed the Russ narrative more. That would make sense. Yep.
And also guys started being like, man, if they're doing stuff like that, there was this conspiracy in our locker room that it was this idea to make Russ look good and Marchand look like shit.
So that was going around the locker room?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Ooh, that's bad.
It was all over Seattle. So it's we all hear you're not deaf to all the media. And then it's wait, we didn't give the ball to Marchand because we didn't want him to get MVP? That floated around there.
Wow.
And then it's well, if that's how they're acting, I got to look out for me, And that's kind of, to me, where some, real selfishness started to slowly grow within that locker room.
Yep.
Not just from one person, from a lot of people.
So, before we close off, anything that you want to say? This is whatever you your monologue.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you want to say to the fans? Whatever.
There is something I want to say, man.
Okay.
There's something I'd love to get this off my chest.
Go nuts.
So, there's a lot of, I'm assuming there's quite a few Windsor people that listen to this.
Yep.
Yeah,
We're the
and then
number one
random-
sports podcast in southwestern Ontario.
I like that.
And then random viewers in Australia that pop up and that's oh, that's funny.
So
okay, that's all.
I have this narrative that has now been built around me, and I was wildly agitated with CBC Windsor about 3 months ago.
Don't say it.
Okay, wildly agitated because it was some of the most Bush League journalism I've ever dealt with. But there's this narrative that I have this grudge against Detroit and the Lions.
I know the exact article you're talking about. I read that.
Everybody knows
that article is fucking trash. Okay, and if you go reread it, maybe if you read it today, if you look at the bottom, it's been edited about 15 times because I brought this thing up to the chain. I'm submitting you guys. I did the article under false pretenses. And then they added the intro after I did the article, so I had no idea what they were even talking about.
Wow.
Bush League shit. But anyways,
yes. Good point. Because here's the one thing. Journalists, sports, politics, whatever, they can manipulate things so badly.
Yes.
And anybody who's listened to the first hour of us, obviously you love Detroit. You love Detroit football. You love the fans. Hard stop. That's it.
Yeah.
It was Patricia Wiener. Yeah, but everybody thinks Patricia's a wiener.
Correct.
You talk to somebody in Boston.
Yes.
They hate Patricia.
And what got weird is I go on TSN and I will always say with Seattle, I play the Homer Seattle role. And it's kind of a joke with me and Jay. I don't like the way Dan Campbell goes for fourth downs. At the end of the year, you can catch me on TSN being like, Dan Campbell should be coach of the year. You can catch me on TSN being like, yo, the Lions have proven me wrong. I said on here, I did think the Rams, not even because the Lions aren't good, I thought the Rams and Matthew Stafford were playing.
He was unstoppable.
They were 5-0. They had
I had them going to the Super Bowl.
We did?
I had the Rams beating San Francisco in the NFC Championship in my bracket.
Who did you have on the other side?
Well, the other side, I made a grave mistake. I'm kind of embarrassed.
Say it. We were embarrassed.
I had the Browns
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's a tough team to pick.
Well,
Wow.
my thought was they had the best defense in the NFL.
Yep.
And I'm like, and Joe
freak
Flacco
show.
is actually slaying the ball around.
Oh,
quite
Joe,
a bit.
Yeah.
playoff Joe was awesome.
Playoff Joe was so
I was
much
in
fun.
for a game.
So
Why did they not sign him?
what was weird was I'm like, yo, they'll smoke Houston, which obviously didn't happen. And then I'm like, this defense will smother Baltimore, and Joe will find a way to get 17 points or so.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, it's going to be Cleveland, and everyone's going to think I'm a genius. Except that
Cleveland Rams.
yes, was what I had, which was a gross bracket. Now, I will say, in fairness, I can't stand when like analysts come on and be like, here's my bracket, and there's 0 upsets, and it's like, I've got the 1 seed versus the 1 seed. Like, oh!
Well, that's the thing. As long as Mahomes is in the NFL,
Yes.
regardless of whatever seed he is, he's just going to be the pick.
You got to
For sure. So, anyways, back to my thing. I obviously did, as we spoke about in length here, I have a million Lions stories that I do not, like my time there. The same point, I loved my time playing football in the city at Villanova for the LaSalle Lightning and Pee Wee, for the Essex Ravens. I still keep in touch. I root for the Lancers. When I look back on my football career, I might be the least grudge-holding, what was the word they used in this article?
I don't know.
It
There's
was
a lot.
like some stupid thing. Like, I know a lot of guys that have like this.
Disgruntled?
Yes, that was it. Disgruntled vibe, and like, man, I got fucked in my career. Like, I'm like, dude, yeah, would I have loved to have been an All-Pro? Of course. I'm like, I got a ring. I'm healthy as shit. I played 8 years for some of the best coaches, minus one guy around. Love Pete Carroll. Have great relationships. I might be, if there's a list right now in the NFL, who is the least disgruntled NFL player retired?
Exactly.
I might be number 1.
Yeah, you're right up there.
So it's like, when I read this shit.
It's just a crappy narrative for clickbait. That's what it
Correct.
is.
And it was funny because I do like try and call like I see it. I don't, and like guys can argue me, it's very fair. I do not like the 4th down stuff. I think 2 years ago, I thought Detroit went for 4th down because they were underdogs. At this point, you are the alpha dog.
Yep.
You don't need to do this shit.
You don't need this.
But it's
game.
like, because of this Windsor narrative, it's like Luke hates the Lions. I'm like, no, like.
Well, you know what? I think for the most part, we're going to get some Windsor people to listen, and then they're going to hear this.
That's good.
And then that chatter is going to decrease.
Clear my
Change
name.
the narrative.
Clear my name. That's right.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, perfect.
What else?
Okay.
Anything else, Luke?
That was kind of it. I'm glad I got to get that off my chest.
You're welcome. It's good. Listen, we're going to drop this Thursday or Friday. For those people that don't know, come and run around with us on Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, come around, run around with Luke. I'll be there, and you'll be there.
We'll be there too.
Windsor City Hall.
Windsor City Hall.
Noon.
Boom. Okay,
Yes.
thanks for tuning in to The Truth. Peace out, fans. Love you all. Good night.